We as a legislature are about to force every teacher in the state to post the 10 Commandments in their classrooms.
If
Do
they are
members
donated.
of the Texas legislature follow the 10 Commandments?
So again, this bill is about honoring our historical, educational, and judicial heritage with the displaying of the 10 Commandments.
The 9th commandment is, "Thou shalt not bear false witness." Are you aware of any legislators who have lied about anything?
That is, there might be one coming up in a minute if you keep talking. We'll see.
The 7th commandment is, "Thou shalt not commit adultery."
Yes?
Do you think that members of the legislature should focus more on trying to follow the 10 Commandments rather than telling others to follow them?
Maybe they didn't have them posted.
It is incumbent on all of us to follow God's law.
That was Texas Representative James Tallarico, a Christian and a Democrat who advocates for religious freedom, possibly throwing shade at Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and others like him. The Texas GOP has just passed a bill requiring public schools to display the 10 Commandments in classrooms. That is a whole story on its own, but let's be real, it was only a matter of time before this particular brand of insanity came here to Texas. But Tallarico attempted to highlight the hypocrisy of the Texas GOP, insisting that the people of Texas live by and abide by a set of religious rules that the GOP themselves do not live by. And he specifically asked about adultery, a misdeed, by the way, that literally no school-aged child is in danger of committing. But our Texas AG, Ken Paxton, who is the most legally embattled AG in the country, is an adulterer, famously so. Paxton is currently attempting to unseat our Republican Senator Jim Cornyn for his seat, essentially because Cornyn, according to Paxton, is not MAGA enough. Paxton wants a Trumpier senator representing Texas in Congress, and he believes that he is just the man for the job. Well, Thursday, Paxton's wife, Angela, who, by the way, is a Texas state senator, decided that she had finally had enough of Ken and his philandering ways, and as it is incumbent on all of us to follow God's law, she has now filed for divorce. She posted on X, "Today, after 38 years of marriage, I filed for divorce on biblical grounds. I believe marriage is a sacred covenant and have earnestly pursued reconciliation. But in light of recent discoveries, I do not believe that it honors God or is loving to myself, my children, or Ken to remain in the marriage. I move forward with complete confidence that God is always working everything together for the good of those who love him and who are called according to his purpose." So Ken confessed to having an affair a few years ago, and the lengths he went to keep the affair from his wife and from his conservative Christian voting base were probably not legal or constitutional. Still, Ken got off, no pun intended, with really no consequence because both the Texas state legislature and his wife decided to forgive him and work towards a happier relationship with Ken. Unfortunately for Ken, his wife seems to have had enough. We will soon find out if Texans have also had it with him. But Ken Paxton is the worst, and I'm not being hyperbolic. He really is just like a terrible person. He sucked so hard that he got impeached by other Texas Republicans. There was a literal dumpster fire outside of his office while he was being criminally investigated for abusing the powers of his office. His own aides reported him to the FBI for committing multiple crimes and ethics violations, and then he fired them. So then they sued him for violating the Texas Whistleblower Act, and they won that case. During the case, Paxton admitted to breaking the law as, again, the highest law enforcement officer in the state, because if he confessed to it, then he wouldn't have to be questioned under oath. In 2023, he petitioned the state's highest court to prevent a woman from terminating her pregnancy. In 2024, he sued a New York doctor who was accused of prescribing abortion pills to a Texas woman. Honestly, there's just so much more, but whenever I do a story on Ken Paxton, I almost get overwhelmed thinking about what to include in the story and what not to. So just know that there's plenty that I did not mention in this video for the sake of just staying focused, but look into him yourself. He is the gift that you never wanted, that just keeps giving. And if you're lucky, he might be headed to the Senate. So then he'll be everyone's problems and not just my problem. On behalf of Texans everywhere, though, all I can say is that I won't be voting for him. So it won't be my personal fault if he does make it into our national Congress. But on the topic of Texas elections, personally, I do take a lot of issue whenever all Texans get blamed for the failings of our state, specifically our Republican state leaders, because not only are there millions of Texans who do not vote for these people or support them, not only are we gerrymandered and redistricted to hell and back, but the GOP suppresses votes in blue districts unapologetically. Like, they're not subtle about their efforts to stifle Democratic votes. So just one very simple example, they took voting machines off of college campuses one year because they know that college students tend to vote blue. What else? They limited voting hours and public health protections in blue districts during COVID. They gave increased access to Republican poll watchers to intimidate Democratic voters. There are criminal penalties in Texas for helping people to vote by mail. Of course, many people who vote by mail are voting Dem. They also purged the voter rolls one year right before the election, knowing that most people who would have been purged wouldn't have any time to re-register in time to vote. Also, registering to vote in Texas is a very convoluted process. This year, the Brennan Center found that one particular Texas law had lasting voter suppression effects. From the study, Brennan Center research has already shown that thousands of mail ballot applications and mail ballots were rejected during the 2022 primary due to SB 1, and that non-white voters were disproportionately impacted. A new working paper from the Brennan Center, along with Michael G. Miller and Ian Shapiro, shows that voters whose applications and ballots were rejected in the primary were considerably less likely to vote in the 2022 general election and the 2024 primary. And those who did vote often shifted from mail to in-person voting. When voters use these less preferred voting methods, this can impose time and travel costs on them. It can also make them less likely to vote in the future, as these policies and practices have increased the cost of casting a ballot for them. So every little bit of voter suppression counts, and the Texas government, which is overwhelmingly red, knows this. Every time they win an election, they do their best to ensure that they never have to lose an election again in the future. When Texans tell you that it is incredibly difficult to vote these terrible people out of office, please just look into it yourself if you don't believe us. And just to drive the point home, Texas Governor Greg Abbott just called a special legislative session supposedly to address the tragedy in Kerr County, but he's also using it to discuss redistricting in Texas again. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks.